If you don't have a chance to look at it now, you can look at it later. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to talk about the importance of fathers and a child's self-esteem, and then I'm going to be answering some questions. So it'll be a lot of fun. If you're interested in seeing any of the other webinars that I'm going to be having, just go to meekerparenting.com and you can see whatever you want to see. Somebody else is talking. I don't know. Do you have the TV on?
Yes, let me mute it.
Okay, that's okay. We can listen to the news while we're waiting to start here.
You're a host now, Alexi.
Okay, perfect.
It's always great if I can see people, but I can't. I won't be able to, right?
No. Let me see. I'm admitting people right now.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I can see names. That's great. I see people are coming in. Hi, Miss Michelle. I hope you're doing well and had a great trip to Europe. And we got to reconnect sometime. Hey, how are you? I think you're muted, but it's nice to see you. And yeah, we'll do this again. We'll do this together sometime. So it'll be fun.
Mute. There we go.
Here we
Anyway,
go. Yeah.
so see you.
Good to see you too. When did you get back?
Just last night. So I'm still jet lagged.
Yeah,
Hey, Ken, how are you?
awesome and getting better. I tell you, Europe's great, but we're exhausted.
I bet you are. I bet
Yes.
you are. It's the problem with vacations is you need a vacation when you get home.
I
It's
have the whole
hard.
week off.
Yeah.
I did that on
Good.
purpose.
Perfect, perfect. And then we got to regroup. So I'm talking tonight on why a father's so important to a child's self-esteem.
Oh, we're
So,
excited.
yep,
We're
yep.
with you. So
Yeah, and I sent you an email. We got it on Facebook through our followers. So I hope you have, I know it's going to be great.
Well, and also we're gonna, we're recorded, of course, and so we can,
Mhm.
send it out and,
Yeah.
to other
Yeah,
people. But
perfect.
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I flew over Michigan last night because the
Oh,
map, and I was like, oh, I'm somewhere near you.
hi. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So good. Lots of good fun work to do. I'm glad you guys are home. You look great.
Yeah.
And a little tired, I will say, Michelle, you look a little tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could hardly get
Ken.
up today till 11:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you
Okay,
go.
we'll
We're
let
going
you
to
go.
watch.
Okay. See you guys. Love
Okay.
ya.
Love you too.
Bye.
Okay, how do I go off here?
Okay, everybody, we've got a lot of people logging in. We're going to get started in a minute, but I thought it would be fun to, well, not fun, but I thought I'd wait a little bit until more people come. I was just talking to Michelle Watson Canfield and Ken Canfield, who does a lot of work with the fatherhood. What's it? He does a lot of work with fatherhood, very well versed in fatherhood and a great resource. So we're going to be doing a webinar together sometime in the near future too, I hope. And Michelle does a lot of counseling of men and dads, and it's pretty good. And I think that Michelle and I are about the only women we know in the father space. So anyway, it's a little lonely, but it's nice to have Michelle in there with me. So just wait a couple more minutes and welcome to spring. I don't know where everybody lives. I'd love to be able to see everybody and know where you live, but I'm in northern Michigan and spring is thinking about coming. So I hope by June it's here. It's been pretty cold, but my husband and my son have been swimming already. They're cold plungers and a little bit crazy, but in Lake Michigan, which is still pretty cold. So anyway, but I'm one of those people that needs sun. And so, Quentin, you are in Palm Beach, Florida. Wow. Good for you. Ah, that's exciting. I'm glad. I'm glad. I wish I could see everybody and know names or I know names, but where you're from and how many kids you have. So if you could just plug that into the chat, I'd love to know it. You know, how many kids you have, where you're living. It's always fun because I really like things to feel personal. You know, when I go into my office and I'm sitting there and I close the door with patients, it is such a privilege and an honor to talk to them and to hear their heart and to know that everything we do in there is confidential. And I kind of envisioned that this sort of be like you all coming into my office one-on-one and we can just talk about family and your kids and being a dad. You know, it's interesting. I was giving a lecture to a lot of people a few years ago. And I was talking on fathers and why they're so important to their kids. And one gentleman stood up and he was a little angry, very angry. And he said, "What in the world makes you think that you are a father expert?" And I said, "Sir, I'm not a father expert, but I know your kids. And I've talked to your kids, and I can tell you what your kids would say they want from you." And so that's really where I come from. Whenever I talk about dads, I'm not telling dads what to do. I'm saying, here's how your kids see you, and here's what they want for you. They want from you. It's so much simpler than you think. So why don't we get started? Why is a father so important to a child's self-esteem? Well, you know, it sounds like an odd question. You think, well, why should I even ask that? Well, first of all, today, a lot of dads are demoralized. A lot of the dads that I talk to feel very insecure in their roles as fathers, which is very sad. Dads are bashed, and they're basically told, you know what, just orbit the family. Life is good. Just sort of shut up and go away, touch down when you need to. And this is terribly hard on kids. Um, some people wonder, well, I'm a single mom. And what does my ex-husband or the father of my child have to do with my child's self-esteem? Can I be enough? Well, let me ask you a question. Every person listening here is a kid. We were a kid. We were a son or a daughter. And let me ask you, what effect did your father have on your self-esteem? And that makes everybody sort of feel good or feel bad or feel scared, whatever. But you know intuitively in your heart, your dad had a profound effect on your self-esteem. Hopefully it was very positive. And if it was positive, you got to pay it forward. If it was negative, don't pay it forward. Now, whenever I talk about dads, often I get peculiar reactions from moms and a lot of anger. And they say, well, why in the world are you talking to dads? That's not fair. What about us? I'm a single mom. I carry the brunt of the parenting, and I know you do. But I need to help you help the father of your kids be a better dad. And that's the power that you have, ladies. Okay. And if you want your life to be really good, help the father of your kids to be a better dad, because then your kids are going to be happy. He's going to assume more responsibility. He's going to be more positive. He's going to be more engaged. And guess what happens to your life? It's so much better. So if you're a single mom, or a married mom, or maybe you've just gone through a divorce, or maybe you're a widow, or maybe you've got your husband living at home, but you're so frustrated because he just won't engage. Hold on. This is going to be really, really important. This topic is critical for mothers. So as I work through this presentation, I want you to think of two things. First, think of yourself as a daughter. Okay, you had a dad. whether you lived with him or didn't, whatever your experience was, I want you to think about yourself as a daughter as I talk to dads, as I talk about dads and their effect on kids. Because once you recognize what you got or what you didn't get, then you're in a position to know exactly what your kids need. That's why you need to be here listening. And then think of yourself as a mom. Okay, as a daughter, this resonates with me because here's the effect my dad had on my self-esteem. But then as a woman, a grown woman, you put yourself in the position of mother. Okay, how can I help my husband or the father of my kids really engage my kids more because they need him? And let me tell you something, everybody. Kids want their dads. If you're divorced and you're ripping mad at your ex-husband, I get it. But guess what? Your kids aren't divorced. Kids want their dads. They want the best relationship possible that they can have with their dads. So let's move forward and we'll begin talking about why dads are so important. Well, we know we have some great research on this, and I just spoke with my good friend Ken Canfield, and I would encourage you to go to his website and look up some of all the great fatherhood research. We know that dads have a tremendous power in their kids' lives. Involved fathers reduce the chance that a kid's going to get involved in sex, drugs, alcohol. If you want to boost your girl's self-esteem, I'll ask patients, they say, well, I'm going to get her tutored for her math. She'll feel so much better about herself if she gets her grades in math up, or maybe she dances better, or she goes recital. That's good, but that's not the number one way to increase and boost your daughter's self-esteem. Studies show the number one way to boost your daughter's self-esteem is to have her dad show her more affection. Because when a dad shows his daughter affection, she feels important. Children whose dads read to them by the time they're 6 months old, if you test them at 6 months or you test them 3 years later, it really has an impact on their IQ. So even when a dad reads to his child, it impacts their IQ. Girls who live with their fathers, believe it or not, start their menstruation later. Now, this is an intriguing thing, and I have some theories on this, but I don't have time to go into it right now. Girls who have their fathers in their lives, I'm not talking about a dad with a PhD in psychology or the best dad out there. Girls with their dads involved suffer less depression, less likely to have anxiety, more likely to go on to college, to finish high school. You name it, it's good for kids across the board. And the same is true with boys. Now, this is all the data that we have on girls that I'm showing you here, but same with boys. And in many ways, dads are more crucial to boys because boys need their dad's affirmation in ways that daughters don't necessarily need, because boys have that masculinity that they want to step into and need to. And I often say that a boy can't become a good man until he sees a good man. In order where he has to be able to visualize him and listen to him and see how he talks and how he doesn't talk and how he treats women. Very, very important. So let's move on. Now, many people wonder, okay, I get it. Dads are important, and I'm a dad, and I'm listening, but what do I do? What do I do? And dads are great. Men are great. Just here's the problem. Tell me what to do. Women, on the other hand, will sit there and go, well, what is the problem? Are you sure that's the problem? And do we need to do something about that problem? How do we answer that problem? Am I part of that problem? So in a lot of ways, it's very simpler for a man. So again, as I walk through this, as we talk about whether or how a father can keep his kids on the right path, like I said, view yourself as a mom and view yourself as a daughter. Now, first thing we need to do is, it's very important. And I tell dads, this is the 5-degree pivot. Okay. When a dad comes and says, okay, what do I do now? I've got this daughter. I worked with a number of NFL players. wonderful men, extremely competent in their craft, in their sport. And many of them say, you know, I know how to play football really well. I get paid a whole lot of money to play football really well. And I feel so self-confident. But then I go off the field and I walk in my house and I feel like a deer in headlights. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know where to begin. How do I talk to my daughter? How do I talk to my son? Because many of them, many did, but many of them didn't have dads growing up. So they kind of need to figure out what a dad looks like and how he talks like. But this is where I start. If you want to figure out what your kids need, you need to start, dad, with a 5-degree pivot. And that means you pivot from the way you see your daughter to the way she sees you. Because if you think about it, if you pivot in the front end, it's a very narrow pivot. But as you work out, it's a huge effect on girls. And this is critically important. I can't stress this enough. In my book, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, I wrote the book from a daughter's perspective. This is what I want from my dad. This is how I see my dad. This is how big he is to me. And as a matter of fact, I interviewed a lot of women for my father-daughter book. And I usually got one of two. When I asked them about their dad, I got one of two responses. Either daughters gushed about their dads or they burst into tears. No middle ground when it comes to your dad. You either wanted more or you wanted to heal more. So when you think about how you parent, whether you're mom or whether you're dad, you need to understand how your kid sees her dad. It's very different how you see yourself, dads, and it's very different how you see your husband, moms. A dad is the most important man in a child's life. He's the most important man in a child's life. And many of you say, no, 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 I didn't know my dad. I know you didn't know your dad. And maybe that's why you're having some struggles. Okay, because dads are needed. You wanted your dad. And if you didn't get him, you hurt. But you know that a dad in a child's eyes is bigger than life. There's a power that he has. He's the most important man because fathers show their kids, they set a template over that kid's heart for how you relate to other men. If you're a girl, how should boys treat me? How should my brother treat me? What are they like? Can I trust them? Can they love me? Can I be secure around them? Or should I be afraid of them? A dad sets that template. He's the first exposure to male love. Now think about that. When a baby's born and dad holds the baby to his chest, that child knows that you, dad, aren't mom. You're not mom. You smell different. You breathe different. You feel different. Your voice is different. You're not better or worse than mom. Because as far as value is concerned, mom and dad are equal. But kids know that their dad is not their mom. So in those early months, if a child gets love from his or her dad and learns to trust dad to provide for them and to give them affection and to show them that love, guess what? They have a very positive perspective of masculinity and malehood or fatherhood. And that's critically important. When kids are also young, they see their dads as a hero. It's interesting. I wrote a book called Hero, Being the Strong Father Your Child Needs. And many men got upset. And I thought, what are you getting upset about? They said, I can't be my kid's hero. I don't this or this or this. And they gave me a litany of things that they can't do. I said, time out. You're not getting it. You're not getting it. You may not feel like a hero. And other people may not see you as a hero, but guess what? To your 2 or 5 or 10-year-old son or daughter, you're a hero. You don't have to do anything to earn it. You just are. So your job as a dad, when your kid is born, is just stay on the platform. You don't have to earn more money. You don't have to go get a PhD in psychology. You just have to be good enough to stay your child's hero. Here's the bottom line. when your child looks at you, dad, and if you're a mother, when your child looks at your ex or your husband or a father surrogate, that child sees that man as enormous because kids need fathers. Fathers don't need kids, and moms don't need kids. And that's why a child is so vulnerable to their dad and to their mother. They need us to stay alive. And a child is connected to his dad, I always say by a cord of gold, because they need him and they will always see him as dad. And even as they get older, they're going to see dad as dad. Every woman takes one man to her grave, and that's her dad. She either wants more time with him if she had a good dad, or she wants more healing with him if she didn't know him, or if she had a painful relationship. So that's the 5-degree pivot. See yourself, see your husband through your kid's eyes so that you can understand what that kid needs. And if you're a mother listening, see yourself as a daughter. What did you want from your dad? Now, as we talk about self-esteem, we need to know what we're talking about because we hear a lot about self-esteem and it isn't what you think it might be. In a lot of pop culture, you're going to hear that you want to boost a kid's self-esteem. So you go to their soccer game and you clap, 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 clap on the sidelines and they'll feel good. That's not necessarily what self-esteem is all about. Or it isn't about making your kid feel better at the stuff that they do. It has nothing to do with their grades or their school or the sports or the instruments they play. Self-esteem has to do in a child's mind with the deep beliefs they have about themselves. Self-esteem in a child comes from the deep beliefs they have about themselves. And they learn those beliefs during the course of their childhood. They learn those beliefs in large part through their mom and through their dad. And when they have a good self-esteem, they know that from your perspective, whether they succeed or whether they don't, it doesn't matter. You're going to love them just the same. That you love them because they are, no more. And sometimes I tell parents who are really struggling with kids, I want you to go home and you look your kid in the eye and say, I want to tell you something. If from right now until you die, you sat in a closet for the rest of your life, I would never love you any less. You are important to me because you are my son or my daughter, period. So self-esteem to a kid knows that whatever happens to me in my life, whether something happens to me or I make a horrible mistake or I show up at home at 15 and I'm pregnant or I get kicked out of school or I get involved in drugs, nothing will break me from my Father's love. Now, we talk about unconditional love all the time. And many parents say, well, I love my child unconditionally, but I really don't like them. Then you don't love them unconditionally because kids need to be liked. Loving your child with no conditions takes work because as our kids get older, often they develop bad habits and they get a little thorny and they get kind of hard to live with. And pretty soon they turn 10 or 12 and go, I just don't really like you very much. But you need to deal with that because we need to show our kids that no matter what happens in the world, we will always love them. And that you will never be ashamed of your child. Never. I had a friend whose child, great kid, great parents, kind of got into drugs and doing stupid stuff when he was a young adult, and he went to live on the streets. And he cut himself off from his family. And once a year, his parents would find where he was. He was all the way across the country. And they would find where he was. And they would go to him on the street. And they would bring him food. And they say, we will always, always love you. Year after year after year, extremely painful for them. And guess what? After about 5 years, he came around and now they have a great relationship. So how does a father build his child's self-esteem. Now, self-esteem has to do with the beliefs you have about yourself. So self-esteem in your kid has to do with the beliefs he has about himself. And guess where those beliefs come from? Dad's. If today you feel like a stupid person, or if today you feel like you really messed up, or if today you feel like you'll never be able to X, Y, or Z, guess where those beliefs might have come from? Now, I'm not going to pin it all on dad. Okay. Could have come from mom. Comes from a lot of sources. But the big beliefs, the most indelible beliefs, the deepest beliefs come from our parents, again, because we need them. So in many ways, during a child's growing up years, a parent shapes that child's identity because your identity is very much linked to your beliefs about yourself. Now, here's where we begin. Every child needs fundamentally 3 things from their dads. Now, this almost seems too easy. You say, well, it's too easy. Give me some complicated something that I need to do and a list of things to memorize so I know what to say when. You don't need that. Any dad can be a great dad. And I say that to you, single moms or divorced moms, even though your husband or ex may have made a lot of mistakes, he still, in most cases, can be a good dad to your kids. Maybe not a good husband, but a good dad to your kids. So you don't have to be a psychologist or an incredibly sensitive person to be a great dad. Attention. Kids want attention from their dads. They want affection from their dads. They need acceptance from their dads. See, I always say great parenting is simple, but it's really hard. The simple stuff, the big stuff, the deep stuff is the hardest to get right. Attention. This is really tough in today's cultures. And I ask a lot of kids who are struggling maybe in high school, and I say, what are the things that you really want from your mom or from your dad? Or what do you feel like you're lacking? And they inevitably say to me, no one pays attention. I'm invisible in my house, and my heart breaks. Also, I often ask kids that question in front of their parents because I want their parents to hear them talk, because parents don't believe it. Parents may think, oh, you know what? I'm giving you a lot of attention. I drive you to your soccer games. I take you to school. I pack your lunches. I make sure we this and I make sure we this. Yeah, but Dad, you're really not with me. You're really not with me. And you know what it's like to be with somebody and they're really not with you. They're not paying attention. So how do we do that? I want to give you just a quick example of what attention is like and how it would impact you. You're a little kid. You're sitting at the kitchen table. You're in kindergarten, so you're coloring. You're coloring a picture. And all of a sudden you hear the door open and Dad walks in and you look up and you go, oh, Dad's home, Dad's home. And in 5 seconds, you figure out whether Dad is in a good mood or a bad mood. Why? Not because you're interested in him, but you're interested to know how he's going to treat you. Like if he's in a bad mood, maybe go to your room. If he's in a good mood, stay coloring. Dad walks into the kitchen. He looks at you. He leans down. He gives you a kiss on the cheek. How are you? I'm so glad to see you. I'm going to go change my clothes. I'll be right back. 30 seconds that took. Now, let's give it another scenario. You walk in. Your daughter looks up. She's from her coloring. She looks at you and you're texting a friend on the phone. You walk right by her. You walk right out of the kitchen. You walk right to your bedroom and change your clothes. What happened to her in 10 seconds? She felt deflated. Now, you didn't even know she was there. So it didn't bother you in the least, but it did her. It affected her self-esteem. Now, you do that once, 10 times, 20 times, no big deal. You do that repeatedly throughout her life, and you've got a kid who feels insecure and she feels empty and she doesn't have value. She doesn't feel she has any value. And guess where her self-esteem is? Very, very low. So, find 1 hour a week You can find an hour a week to spend one-on-one time with your kid. Even if it means going up at bedtime, bedtime's a great time to spend time with your kids. Sit on the end of the bed. How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a long time. We haven't connected. Tell me about your week. And then be quiet. Don't don't answer the question for them. Don't pull things at them. Sit and listen. Reset your priorities. If you're working 70 or 80 hours a week and you're never seeing your kids, you're hurting their self-esteem. That goes for moms and for dads. So all you dads out there who are workaholics, you got to dial it back if you want to build a healthy self-esteem in your kids. And learn with your spouse to sort of do a balancing act if you can. Third, pay attention to the people around you, not the stupid screen. What I encourage parents to do, when you get home, put the stupid phone down for 1 hour. You're going to go into withdrawal, okay? We all go into withdrawal when we put our screen down because we have to make sure we get that text or we get that email from a friend or whatever it is. Break free. If you want to set a good example to your kids of how they can be happy without a screen, show them how to do it. I guarantee you, when you're off the screen, you're going to start looking around the house because you're going to be bored and you're going to start looking at the people around you and go, oh, okay, I didn't even notice you here. Now, when you're off your screen, look in your kids' eyes. Do you know how uncomfortable a lot of people are looking somebody in the eye? Teach your child what connection is about. Connection is about looking at a person in the face, not through a screen and not through a text. Look at them in the eyes, and you will be able to see within 5 or 10 seconds what's going on inside of them. Are they sad? Are they anxious? Are they happy? Are they depressed? Are they worried? What's going on? Look them in the eyes. Now, for a lot of fathers or mothers who are really having a hard time with their schedule. You've got little kids, you're both working outside of the home. Okay, practice what I call daily touchdowns. Daily touchdowns are 10, 15, 20 minutes going over to your kid, just engage in whatever they're doing. If they're playing soccer in the backyard, go out and just kind of talk to them while they're doing it. If they're even doing your homework, sit down, bring them a Coke or something. Engage them, go to them and show them some affection, give them some attention. Let them know they're not invisible in the house. Kids feel so invisible. And I think that's a lot of why we're having so much anxiety and depression in kids now. They feel invisible. When you look at your kid, smile. Now that sounds corny. Smile, because it's amazing how many of us don't smile during the day. We're very intense people, and we tend to focus on things. Touch the top of their head, kiss them on the cheek, tell them that you miss them, and then, of course, say goodnight. Another, and probably the most profound way you show attention to your kids is by listening to them. Now, to those of you who have a 13, 14, 15-year-old daughter and you're a dad, go, you don't understand. My daughter won't even talk to me. She won't look to me. I walk in the room, she walks out the other side. I know, I get it. But here's the thing. For kids who are rebuffing you and don't want your attention or your time, they're doing so not because of you, but because of them. They're having difficulty communicating. They're having difficulty knowing how to sit face to face with somebody and have a more intimate conversation. They're uncomfortable with themselves, not necessarily with you, but because you're the nearest and dearest person and the safest person, guess what? They're going to dump on you, and they're going to show you that they really don't want your attention. An hour a week, look them in the eyes, reset your priorities, daily touchdowns, and ask them questions. If they don't want to answer them right away, no big deal. You just go try the next day and the next day and the next day. Often parents tell me, teenagers just don't want to talk. Oh, yes, they do. Teenagers love to talk. That's why in social media and posting and this kind of thing. But they don't want to talk to people who aren't going to listen to them. And they don't want to talk to people who are just going to go, no, you're not right. No, let me tell you something. No, I've heard it all before. Don't you know that this? Be quiet. Even if your kids tell you something awful, be quiet. Give them your attention. It's critically important. I was talking with a dad a year or so ago, and his 15-year-old daughter came home and told him he was pregnant, and he said, I just wanted to start crying. I thought my life was over. Her life's over. What do I do? What do I do? And I said, what did you do? And he said, well, I was so stunned. I didn't know what to say. And I thought her life and my life had come to an end. So I said, why don't we wait? And this is really, really, really important. So I'm going to wait and I'm going to think about this. And I want you to wait and think about it. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. Well, guess what? When tomorrow came and dad sat down to talk to her, do you think she listened to her dad? Absolutely. Because her dad listened. He heard what she had to say. He understood that she was in a very painful place. And he said, I'm in it with you. You have my full attention here. I'm not going to just scream, and I'm not going to call you names, and I'm not going to call you stupid, and I'm not going to shame you. I will listen because you are my daughter, and no matter what, I love you. So simple, but so hard. Let's go on. Then kids need affection. Now, in general, moms are pretty good about affection. And in some ways, we just a little over the top. My son always said, Mom, you're just so over the top, particularly when I repeated myself, I love you, I love you, I love you. Mom, stop. Once is fine. Twice is fine. I don't need to hear this. But you do it because you want them to feel loved. We want to feel that we're giving them some affection. We give it in all sorts of ways. Of course, there's hugging. Everybody needs to be touched more. If you have a child who's overweight, guess what? They aren't touched much at all. And we miss it. If a child is acting out and they're getting under your skin, they're not touched much at all. If you have a child who's a bully in school or who struggles with anxiety and you don't know what to do with them, you don't touch them much at all. Every kid today from their dad needs more attention and more affection. Remember the self-esteem thing that I showed you in studies, that in order to boost a girl's sense of value and importance and self, nothing does it like a dad coming alongside of her and giving her a sideways hug or a hug in the front or a hug from the back. If you have a teenage daughter, you need to learn to show affection differently than you did when she was 5 or 8. And you got to get used to this. When kids are 5, they'll come and sit on your lap and you can read to them and they're cuddly and they're fun. Most kids, most girls. And they're cuddly and they're fun and I love you and I love you. And then they turn 8 and a little snarky and then they hit pre-puberty and then they're full on puberty and they're teenagers. And they walk down and they look at you like you are a telephone pole with spikes all around it. And you don't want your dad to get near you. And so you back away. Well, what happens? Dad moves in to give you a hug and everything in your body just, no, 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 stay away from me. You're such an idiot. I just don't like you, whatever. This is what nice guys do. They back away. Okay, you don't like me. Clearly I'm bugging you. There's the problem. I'll back away. No. When a girl tells you or a son starts to rebuff you and pull away from you, which is what trouble kids do, they're screaming for your attention. They're screaming for you to show them affection. So when your teenager or pre-pubertal or daughter comes to you and says, no, you're gross, don't touch me, move in and learn to show her affection in a different way. Write her little notes and leave them on her pillow. Write a note and put it in her lunchbox or her backpack. Touch her in different ways. Touch her on the top of her head. Kiss her on the top of her head. Touch her shoulders. Just give her a little bit of a squeeze. Maybe not a full-on bear hug, but I guarantee you, the more you practice with the sort of sideways affection, the more she'll open up to letting you hug her more intentionally. But This is why she doesn't want you to hug her. She feels very badly about who she is. And I've never met a seventh, eighth, ninth, or 10th grader who feels good about themselves. I haven't. You know, they say, well, I'm having self-esteem problems and I'm in the ninth grade. Of course you are. Everybody in the ninth grade has self-esteem problems. Guess what? Most 25-year-old women and men have self-esteem problems, right? Because it takes a lot of all this good stuff to build a strong self-esteem in any of us. And so just understanding that during the teen years, when your son or your daughter pushes back on you, Dad, realize what they're saying is, please, 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 please come closer. Please come closer. I need more from you, but I don't know how to ask. And I'm so ugly and I'm so fat, or I'm so tall or too thin, or I'm just ugly and nobody likes me, da, 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 da. And they have all these tapes in their head. Recognize that when your kid rebuffs you, it's not about you. It's about them. And you need to understand this, because in order to build a strong sense of self, you need to continue to go after and after and after your child in a very gentle way. Acceptance. Finally, this again, it's so easy to accept your child when they're born and they're lovable and they're not talking to you. Well, maybe it's harder when they cry a lot or they're colicky, but it's really hard not to accept a little child who's so cute. And then they crawl and then they walk and then they turn two and they start biting you and spitting at you or throwing their temper tantrums. It's very important for you to begin to practice accepting a child who's bothering you. And it's important to do it early on in life, because I guarantee you, as your child gets older and into the teen years, even into the 20s, part of them is going to become something that you don't like. They're going to do something you don't like, thinking, I don't, I never realized I would have a kid who does this. He's a painter. I play football. What the heck is going on? My dreams are dashed. Now what do I do? But it's really important to just kind of practice this. Acceptance. You need to use words. Women know this. If you have ever had your wife come to you, or if you're a boyfriend and your girlfriend comes to you and say, do you love me? Yes, I love you. Do you really? Well, yes, I love you. No, come on, come on, come on. Do you really? The same is true with our kids. They need to hear it over and over and over, because they need to know that they're loved and accepted by us. Watch your facial expressions. Don't roll your eyes. Don't look disgusted. If your kid tells you something that you don't like, try to put on a poker face. Don't make ugly faces. You know, we are so good at that as parents. When we hear our kids say something that we don't like, or we just disagree with, we can look pretty doggone ugly to our kids. And we need to know that how we speak is incredibly important to our kids. Now, I'm not going to isolate dads here, but it tends to be more of a dad problem than a mother problem. The mothers struggle with the same thing: yelling. We yell at our kids because we feel out of control, we're exhausted, we're tired, and we just rip into our kids. No child deserves to be yelled at. Now, can you raise a healthy kids if you've yelled at them? Of course. But you need to acknowledge that yelling isn't okay. Why? Because your kid, because they need you, hangs on your body language, the words you use, the tone of voice you use. Some of you have very deep voices and you sound very stern, terrifying to a little kid. If you're very tall or very big and you've got a little kid, terrifying to your kid. So it's really understand that important that you watch your body language as you're raising your kid. Don't compare your kid to your kids and the other kids in your family. I can't tell you how many times I see a family where one or two kids are the princess and the prince. And if you wonder whether you have a favorite child or not, look at pictures you've taken in the past year or two. Which child are you closest to in the picture? Who are you hugging? Which kid do you have your arm around, and which is sort of at the end of the picture? You'll quickly realize that the one who's at the end of the picture, in your mind, you're comparing to the one that's closest to you, because they're just somehow not measuring up, but you don't even realize it. You have to focus on acceptance. If you see something in your kid that's driving you crazy, deal with it. Don't scream at your kid about it. Deal with your own disappointment and deal with the fact that maybe you just feel like you're not being a really good parent because your kid's out of control, and that shouldn't be if you're a really, really good parent. So we have affirmation, we have acceptance and attention and um, I'm sorry. And these things are are so obvious. Affection and attention, they're so obvious we don't even think about them. But if honestly and truly, dads, if all you thought about were acceptance and attention and affection, one, two, three, every day, what am I showing? What am I showing? What am I showing? You have to be intentional about it. And that's how you raise a kid with a great self-esteem. Now, I wanted to say to a lot of the mothers out there, thank you very much for hanging in here. It's kind of weird sometimes as a mom to listen to a talk about dads, but here's why it's really important for you. I hope that when I was talking, you saw yourself as a daughter going, that's what I wanted from my dad. I wanted my dad to hug me. I wanted my dad to pay attention to me. I wanted to know that my dad, no matter what I did, accepted me for who I am. And maybe if I didn't get those things, or that's maybe why I hurt. Same is true with fathers. So that's seeing our dads through our seeing yourself through your kids' eyes is critically important. But for all the mothers who maybe are raising their kids without their husband involved or without a dad involved, the child's dad involved. Or maybe he just took off and he's in prison. Or maybe he's a bad alcoholic and you just had to get your kids away from him. Is it game over for your child? Absolutely not. A lot of amazing single moms have raised amazing kids. But here's one thing that many of those single moms have in common who end up with great kids. They expose their kids to good men. Maybe it's your brother. Maybe it's your father. Maybe it's your pastor. Maybe it's a coach. Because whether you're a daughter or whether you're a son, you need to see a good man in action. Boys need it so they can see how to behave, what their speech should be like, how they should talk to girls. How does a man talk to mom? How does a man talk to me? And boys need to see it because they need to know what a good man looks like and acts like and how he treats other people. So whether you're a single dad or whether you're a single mom, you can do a great job with your kids. But what we can't do is raise a kid telling them, you know what? You didn't have a father around. I'm sorry. He just didn't care. He's an alcoholic. He's in prison. You know what? You don't need dad. I'm enough. Your kid knows you're not enough, and your kid knows there's more. And in a way, that's really good news for single moms because guess what? You can't be two people at once. You can only be a great single mom. And you need to expose your child to some masculinity around you. And if you look hard, you can find it. Even just to maybe that man could spend a little time with your kid, or you could talk about him, or if he goes on to the movies with his kid, ask if he would mind taking your kid with him. But again, particularly boys, they need that acceptance, and girls need that acceptance too. So we don't have a whole lot of time now, but I would be happy to answer any questions that people have. There's lots that usually come up, and often it's from the single moms who say, this is terrible. I don't know what to do, because a lot of women are taught that we've got it all together and we can be everything to our kids. And while we want to believe that, the truth is kids need their dad. And you know that because you were a kid. Everybody knows that. And it's hard for some mothers to admit, yeah, I can be great as a single mom, but I do need some help and my kid needs a little bit more. So any questions at all on self-esteem or how you talk or what you say or what you shouldn't say? I think what I'd really like to do, I think this might be helpful, is in a next webinar, give a talk on how your relationship with your dad impacts your parenting now. And that would be pertinent if you're a mother or if you're a father. It's really important to recognize and to deal with, because there's a lot that we want from our dads that maybe we got, or maybe we didn't get, or maybe we got 3 out of the 5 things or just a few things. Very, very, very important to understand what we wanted and what we got. Okay, let's see. Where are my questions?
I've got them for you, Dr. Meeker.
in
So
the
we,
chat.
yeah,
Oh,
we have our first question,
got it.
and one of our participants asked, how do we influence the relationship with the wife and the children? Like, so speaking from the dad's perspective on
Okay.
this. Yeah.
I think the most important thing, and this goes both ways, okay? How does a mother impact her child's relationship with the dad, and how does a dad impact the child's relationship with his mother? Great question, because we're not really good at this. I was not good at when I was raising our kids. We have 3 daughters and a son, and I was convinced I knew how to talk to the daughters better than my husband did, and I was wrong. Here's what you do. First of all, you acknowledge what's your wife good at, what's the mom good at, what are you good at? And then whatever you see your ex or your wife being good at, applaud her for it. You work so hard. I am so grateful that you really want to be a good mom. I'm so grateful that you do this and you do this and you find positive qualities that she has and you praise her for them. And then you praise her in front of your kids. Because if you want your kids to get along better with their mother, they're going to do that if they believe that you approve of their mother. Now, you don't need to approve of everything she does, but you need to help your kids have the best relationship with their mom that they can have. One of the biggest, biggest mistakes parents make, and I see it all the time, is that they criticize the other parent to the kids. If you really want to take your kids down fast, lambaste your husband or your wife, particularly if you're divorced. And it's one of the cruelest things that divorced parents can do to their kids. Your dad was just so bad. You need to understand. He did this and he did this and he did this. Kids don't want to know that, and it hurts them to have that. So, with your spouse, praise them to themselves, build them up, and then praise them in front of your kids. Even if you're divorced, and even if you don't like 9 out of 10 things that your ex didn't do or did, you don't like 9 out of 10. You focus on that one and you applaud them for that. And you tell your kids, your mom's working so hard to be such a good mom. There's always something positive you can say. That's the best thing that you can do to build your kids' relationship with your spouse.
Another question we have, Meg, is also one that we got over email this week, where the participant loved this presentation, but wondering where they can read and study more on this topic. So are there any studies that we can send to people, or any scientific references?
Oh my.
Just to dive more into the data.
Open my drawer. Come to my house and open my drawer. We just opened the Meeker Parenting Community. And it's a community, brand new, fresh, and anybody can join. And what we're going to do, and it's a closed community. It's a community, a private community. We ask questions. I answer your questions. I post videos on certain things. If dads have a burning question on something and I want to address it, and a lot of other dads do, guess what? I'm going to make a video for you. We're going to post it so you can learn, because a lot of your questions and needs and issues come up over time. And so I strongly recommend go to meekerparenting.com and join our community. We're going to continue these discussions. I have so much research. I have a library in our community where you can go and just look things up. And if you can't find what you need write it and ask me, and I'll send you where the reference is on it. Because as a physician, I highly value research. I don't like to just say things out of the top of my head. It has to be backed up in good research, like the self-esteem in girls. There's a study that shows that. So there's so many different places where you can find research, but just come to me because that's my job and that's what I love to do. And I've been doing this for 30 some years. So I'd love to see you in the Meeker parenting community. I really love doing this and talking to you. And like I said, I wish I could see you all.
We have another question that says, my husband sometimes has a hard time hiding his frustrations, both directly or indirectly. How can we make sure that my daughters still feel safe with him?
Yeah, that's a great question. Usually, frustration in a parent primarily comes from something other than the kids. Okay, so if you think about it, when you go to work during the day, do you explode at work or do you yell at your boss or do you tell him what you really think about him or do you let your frustration show? Probably not. Why? Because you can't. And otherwise you'd be fired. So why do we come home and do it with our kids? We do it with our kids because all of the frustration in our lives gets dumped onto our kids. Okay. So what I do with parents who have an anger issue, they're yelling at their kids, they're frustrated with their kids. Most usually it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the kids. The kids are there, they just sort of put them over the edge. And so I would sort of sit down. If you have a spouse, for instance, say my husband yelled a lot at my kids. I would want to go to him and say, you better knock that off. You're going to wreck our kids. If you don't stop doing that, out you go. Well, that's what you want to say, but that's not what you say. Okay. You hold it in. You always say something like this. You go to your spouse and go, honey, I recognize that you're feeling really, really frustrated, and I want to help you with that. And where do you think your frustration's coming from? Don't talk about what the frustration's doing to the kids. That won't work. If you go to someone and say, you better change this because it's hurting another person, maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. But if you go to that person and say, I'm concerned about you because your frustration is hurting you, how can I help you work it through? I'm just so frustrated at work. I can't stand this person. I can't stand this person. I thought so. I knew there was something going on because a lot of times your frustration just kind of explodes. And I really want to help you with that. That takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of discipline to do because you go into that relationship angry at your spouse because they're exploding on your kids and you want it to stop immediately, but you have to take your time. So help them by saying you're concerned about them. In the meantime, if you see that your kids are suffering because dad is exploding and there's a lot of frustration, you go to your kids without putting your husband down and you say, you know what, honey, um, dad is going through a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. And a lot of times their stress comes out sideways and they do things they don't mean to do and they don't want to do. But, you know, sometimes that just happens. But I just want you to know that it has nothing to do with you. He's just really frustrated. So you, as much as you can convince a kid it doesn't have to do with them, which is hard to do because of their cognitive state and development, you try to do that because if you don't say something, the kid will believe I'm doing something to really upset my dad. That's why he's yelling and he's so frustrated. I better change because the kid will always, always, always blame themselves. So I would start with that. Address the frustration, you're concerned about him, and then talk to the kids about, you know, what's going on in the home without putting dad down. And then give it time. You got to give it time. But I've seen so many dads turn around who have real anger issues. And by the way, a lot of them have anger issues as a dad because their dad had anger issues with them when they were a kid. It all just kind of recycles. And that's why I think it's really important to talk about these things. And like I said, to talk a little bit later about how your relationship with your dad affected your parenting. Big, big, big stuff.
Dr. Meeker, we have one final question. I feel like I fight with myself to show affection. How can I open up and be more vulnerable with my kids
Well,
and for them?
you're 90% there. you get that you have a hard time with it. And it's really important. I'm so proud for you as a dad that you said, I have a hard time doing this, because a lot of men do. And a lot of men feel very secure and they feel unimportant and they withdraw from the family. And then the family says, okay, you don't want anything to do with this, particularly when it comes to affection, particularly when it's a boy, a teenage boy. Teenage boys crave affection too. They all do. But this is what I would do. I would sit down and go, why do I have such a hard time with affection? What's going on in me? Do I have a hard time with affection with everybody, or is it just with my kids? And it could be that maybe you were never shown affection, so you don't really know how to hug a kid because you weren't hugged. It's very, very common. A lot of dads a generation ago just didn't know they needed to hug their kids that much. They thought that was kind of a mom's job. They were the tough dad guy who just had to, keep everything all buttoned up. So try to figure out where it's coming from. Try to figure out why you're so uncomfortable. And then say, okay, here's the deal. I'm really uncomfortable with this, but I'm going to face my fear and go through it. I'm going to step through it. Where's the easiest place you can start? Well, you don't have to start with a full front on bear hug. Okay. You start by touching your daughter's hand at the dinner table, or touching her shoulder at the dinner table, or rubbing her head, or walking up behind her and just touching her on the shoulders. Take baby steps on affection. Then you touch her shoulder and now you just start to rub her shoulder a little bit, or you pat her on the head and you lean in towards her. And so you gently work up, because it's an anxiety issue. It's a fear. And so, when you're afraid of other things, you just don't go, well, I'm afraid I can't do it. So take baby steps into it. And I will guarantee you, once you start to do it more frequently, your child will love it. That will make it easier for you. And once you get rolling with it, you're going to do great. You'll do great because it feels good to you too. But I will encourage you, if you start to do it and you're rebuffed and your kid goes, because they're not ready or they're not used to it. I don't know how old your kids are. They may go, what's going on here, Dad? Don't pay attention. Just keep on moving and keep on moving. You're a grown up. You sound like a great dad. You can do this, and you can do it faster than you think you can. So don't let your fears stop you from being a great dad, because it's a need that your kids have. And believe it or not, it's a need you have. Parents need to be affectionate with their kids too. And that's a whole nother talk, but great question. Great question. Well, you all have been great. I really want to keep talking to you. I really want to do another webinar on how your relationship with your dad affected your parenting, whether you're a mom or whether you're a dad. It affects both equally. And we'll do a webinar on that, but come into the Meeker parenting community and let's just keep talking. If there's a friend of yours who needs to hear it, this talk, the webinar is going to be available. They can go and they can listen to it. A lot of people can't be here live, but that's the wonderful thing about media and what we have now. We can go in at 3 a.m. and we can listen to whatever we want to listen to. So anyway, thanks for coming, everybody. Really appreciate all of you. I really appreciate that you're here trying to be a better parent, enjoying parenting more, because it is so wonderful and it can be so much better no matter where you are in your parenting journey. So thanks for joining me. God bless. Have a good rest of your day.